Rey Fenix appeared on Friday Night SmackDown, and this time we do have confirmation it was him. But did we get a teaser for an Aleister Black return? But what we do know is the Street Profits are the new WWE Tag Team Champions, and that is delightful. I'm Ben Allison, you're watching Allison Analysis, and here are my 5 key findings from tonight's episode of Friday Night SmackDown. I'm so used to saying last night's Friday Night SmackDown, but today it's European time, UK time, 7 PM to be exact, right? It was delightful. I'm getting Allison Analysis done on the night for once, and let's get straight into it. In at number 5, I'm thrilled WWE gave Axiom a match in Spain. Going into the show, I was really hoping for an Axiom appearance. Of course, I know he's in NXT, but he is from Spain. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually expect them to do anything. Or if they did do something, I expected it to be some dark match. But he actually was on the show. He faced Gunther, and this was a nice surprise, not only for Axiom, but for the crowd as well. I mean, they went absolutely nuts when he came out. In fact, they went nuts before he came out. They went crazy when Gunther said, "I've heard that there's a kid round choose the next big thing." Of course, a reference to his old name, A-Kid, before he became Axiom. And the two put on an absolute fantastic TV match. Thoroughly enjoyable, the crowd were into it, and it was a great showing for Axiom for when he eventually does get called up to the main roster, while keeping Gunther looking strong as World Heavyweight Champion. Now, obviously Gunther is on Raw. They didn't explain why he was on SmackDown, but truthfully, I think that is going to be a theme which we see over the next few weeks during this European tour. I think despite the fact they've just done a transfer window, I think they are kind of just going to throw the brand split out the window until WrestleMania now, and I'm not really a fan of that, but in this specific case, I loved the match, so I'm not going to complain. But after WrestleMania, can we please have a hard brand split? But, and I hate to say this, and I sound like a hater saying this, but it is true. This is the most interesting thing I've seen from either Gunther or Jey Uso during this Gunther and Jey Uso feud, and it's not even advanced the feud. But the question is, will Gunther do any more of these open challenges on this European tour? WWE have so many, really talented European stars on their roster, so I do think it's an opportunity to showcase some of them. Maybe even Nathan Fraser in London. I mean, that would be a great one. Noam Dar in Scotland? Who says no to that? And I mean, it would be so random, but imagine we run back Jordan Devlin versus Gunther in Ireland once again. Of course, JD McDonough now. Wait a second, he's injured. We can't do that. Ah, darn it. In at number 4, Barcelona agrees with me that Drew McIntyre is in the wrong feud. Now, before we get into this point, I want to say something. This will be the last time I'm going to mention this, right? Or at least mention it as a whole point. Because I understand I'm going on about it now, and I understand it's going to get repetitive, and I'm sorry about that. But they were chanting for CM Punk in the segment with Drew McIntyre. Everybody wants to see McIntyre and Punk. Everybody wants to see McIntyre and Rollins. Everybody wants to see McIntyre and Reigns. He should be in that storyline. It should be a 4-way. It makes so much sense. All their stories overlap. But instead, they've thrown together last minute this feud between McIntyre and Damian Priest. And yes, it makes sense, right? It's not like it's nonsensical, but it's just so blatant. There's a better storyline, which makes even more sense right in front of them. And McIntyre gave a massive beatdown to Damian Priest on this show, and guess what? The crowd were going nuts and crazy for Drew McIntyre, while the face Damian Priest was being beaten down. And this is going to get worse as weeks go on, because in a few weeks they're in Scotland, and then they're in England. Both of those places McIntyre is going to be cheered. They do still have time to build this, to advance it more and to make it an even better feud. And like I said, right, they have got foundations for it. But it's just so annoying they had something perfect literally on their plate. And instead they've gone back into the kitchen, and for some reason they've tried to cook something else up. In at number 3, Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton shouldn't be wearing similar coloured gears. Now, people I know make fun of me when I go on about in-ring gears and how the colors people wear matters. I understand it's because I'm a graphic designer. I'm obsessed over that type of stuff. Wrestling ring gears just fascinate me. But I don't even think you need to be interested in this type of stuff to have noticed SmackDown was an issue. Both Charlotte and Tiffy were wearing almost identical coloured gears. They both have a similar skin tone, and they both have the exact same colour hair. It just doesn't work. The two were brawling, and genuinely, my girlfriend, who's like a very casual wrestling fan, couldn't tell them apart. Like, that is an issue, right? If people can't tell them apart, then yeah, it's an issue. They really need to be talking about what gears they're wearing, and quite frankly, they need to be, paying a lot more attention to the gears that they wear. And obviously, pink is the color which Tiffy wears. So just let her have it. And I know Charlotte has worn pink before, right? She wore pink in her early days on the main roster, but she's worn blue for the last, 5 or so years? So just continue wearing blue. Or even red, like sometimes she wears red. Have Tiffy wear a really pale pink and have Charlotte wear a really dark red. There we are. But you can't both be wearing pink. But I am glad this feud is starting to heat up, right? I still don't really understand why Charlotte has this much of an issue with Tiffy, and I would love to understand that a little bit more. It feels like there's a few points which they just aren't telling us, but they have time to tell us. And, the segment was very enjoyable. It was very fun. The crowd were loving it, and it did heat up the feud a little bit. And at least it wasn't repetitive this week as well, right? At least there was an actual brawl and not just Charlotte attacking Tiffy after a match. Right, before we get into the top 2 key findings, I do have to ask you guys for a quick favor, and that quick favor is very simply hitting the like button, commenting, and subscribing if you haven't. Here at Wrestling Republic, we create between 5 to 10 free videos every single week, and in addition to that, we do a live daily stream every single day at 8 p.m. UK, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Thank you guys so much. In at number 2, a REY FENIX vignette aired, but did we also see an Aleister Black one? First things first, it is now official. We saw REY FENIX. We know it was him. Why do we know it was him? Well, they showed us his hand tattoo, right? This isn't some conspiracy theory at this point. They showed us a close-up of his exact hand tattoo. It is now official. But the question is, that 4 vignette we saw later on in the night, what could that mean? And could it mean a return of Aleister Black? Now, of course, the reason for this theory is it was literally in his exact visual style, right? It was obvious when it came to that. Plus, we know that recently Aleister Black was removed from the AEW roster page. But what does the 4 mean? Does it mean 4 weeks until he shows up? Is it a reference to the fact he was on chapter 4 of his story before he left the company? Could it mean he's starting a 4-person faction? Could it be 4 days until he shows up and he appears on NXT instead? I doubt this one. Or could it actually be half of an A and they're going to reveal the other half of it next week? I mean, all these are technically possible, and quite frankly, I don't know which one it is. I mean, I would guess it's 4 weeks' time, but that is 2 weeks before Mania. Why not just wait until the Raw after Mania? I mean, maybe he is going to create a new faction with Miro, who also left, Rusev as he's in WWE, or something like that, I don't know. But listen, it's got us speculating, and it's an exciting time for WWE, no doubt about it. The only worry I have is about the fact that they've brought in a lot more talent recently, and they have so many talented faces in NXT as well. My fear kind of is there going to be too many people on the main roster once again? If so, that would absolutely suck for Aleister Black and Rusev and Andrade too, right? Because they were in WWE before when there was too many people on the main roster. They left, they joined AEW, and there was too many people there. They've then gone back, and if there's too many people there again, I mean, their luck would just be awful. In at number 1, the Street Profits deserve their moment. The fact that they hadn't held tag team gold in over 4 years is absolutely insane to me. I didn't even realize it had been that long. But boy, oh boy, have these guys been underutilized and underrated. I mean, they're so talented. Honestly, they're one of the most talented tag teams of this generation. In fact, they are both so talented, they could both be single superstars, but clearly they don't want to be. They want to stay together, so I don't understand why we've not been, utilizing these two better. The stuff with Lashley just didn't go anywhere near as well as it should have, right? That had so much potential, and clearly Triple H just saw nothing in it, and that sucked. But the fact is, now they have their moment. They are tag team champions once again, and I am glad. So let's not waste another second with these two. Now, some people are complaining about the fact that these tag team championships have been hot potatoed a little bit. And listen, I understand it. I don't like it when that stuff happens with championship belts. But the fact is, since Triple H came in as the head of creative, we've just had long title reign after long title reign. So I'm not actually mad at all in one division for there to be quite a few title changes in a short amount of time. And I do hope this eventually leads to Pretty Deadly winning the tag team titles, because they also really deserve a moment. But I wouldn't do it necessarily anytime soon, because the Street Profits do deserve a proper reign. In fact, I'd like to see them hold them until at least SummerSlam. Hell, maybe even put Pretty Deadly on the other brand and win the tag titles there, right? Maybe you just let the Street Profits do their own thing, but they deserve this moment so much. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed SmackDown, and not just because it was on at a reasonable time for me, but also that Barcelona crowd was phenomenal, and they didn't really hijack any segments or promos either. The LA Knight one right at the start of the show was the only one where, he kind of got a bit flustered by them. But apart from that, I mean, it was only positive. It only added to the show. And I do think it's going to make things really exciting on Raw and SmackDown over the next few weeks. But yeah, we just didn't really get a long promo segment on the show. And that is the one thing where I don't know how that's going to go when that happens. But I'm guessing we are going to find out on Monday. But saying that, Paul Heyman handled it extremely well, right? So it is clearly doable. But overall, I'll say this SmackDown can have a subtle round of applause, a really enjoyable show, and definitely worth the watch if you haven't watched it. I'm excited for the next episode, Roman Reigns, Jade Cargill versus Liv Morgan. There's tons of stuff already announced, and it's going to be a fun one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace!